Hi guys, and welcome back to the JST Compete podcast. Today we have Stephen Fawcett, Jack Cornthwaite, and myself, Kyle Clark. And again, we're going to bring you another episode. In today's topic, we're going to throw it back to regionals and talking about the competition itself. So just giving you insight from the lads who've obviously experienced it. How are you guys anyway? All good?
All good.
All good in the hood.
Looking forward to this one. Good bit of reminiscing. It's always good to reminisce a few experiences and share some stories. So, looking forward to see what questions you've got to fire at us.
Yeah, the good old days.
Oh, bring back the memories. So, kicking it off for one of our first questions is, what are your first memories of regionals?
I'll start, Jack. My first memory, although my first regionals was actually 2011, remembering stuff from it, I can remember one or two things, but it's not very clear. I don't really feel like that was my first regionals experience because it was, I don't know, it just didn't seem like regionals, if that makes sense. So my first individual one was in 2012, and that was when it was in Copenhagen. And for some reason, the only like clear memory I have of that regionals was one of the workouts. I think it was the second workout on the first day. It was row 2K, 50 pistols, and then 30 hang power cleans at 102 kilos. And it's like, you think of that workout now and it's like, that's fucking hard.
Yeah.
Like, imagine how hard that was 8 years ago. When your max power clean was 110, like it was. Because that was like the big workout that got announced. It was like they announced that, and it was like in Europe we always knew the workouts for like 4 to 6 weeks. For some reason, we were always like one of the last weekends to go. So the amount of hang power cleans I must have done in that lead up just for that workout because. You didn't want to be that guy that couldn't lift it. The one thing I remember is like most people would stringing them together in 2s, 3s, get to singles eventually. It'd end up being one deadlift, one hang power clean, drop it. But Lucas Hogberg, this must have been, it's probably his first regionals appearance as well. I remember he had just longer hair, but bit like mine, but really long, and swept over like this. And he was just doing like sets of 10 with 100 kilos, and it was just like, you think of it now, and it's like, yeah, that's not too bad now. But back then, he was just whipping about 100 kilos like it was absolutely nothing, and it was just like, it was this big. I remember him as this big unit. I mean, he still is a big unit, and all I remember thinking coming back from that regionals is just getting back and thinking I need to get big. I need to get strong like these guys because these European guys were just fucking monsters. And they were chucking 100 kilos out. It was quite a heavy year, that one. There was, although it's not heavy, there was Diane, so 100 kilo deadlifts. The next event was the 100 kilo, 102 kilo hang power cleans. There was 165 kilo deadlifts in the final. There was a max snatch. And there was that workout, the 4 rounds for time of 100 meter sprint, 10 dumbbell snatch with 45 kilos. Like,
this would have been my year to qualify for the game.
It would. And then the chipper was the, I think it was that year. Yeah, it must have been that year. The 50, 40, 30 chipper, I don't know if you've ever done it. It was back squats, shoulder to overhead, pull-ups, shoulder to overhead. And the squats changed to back squats, front squats, overhead squats. Anyway, it was just it was heavy, long. It was just a savage weekend. But yeah, now I come to think about it, I do start to remember quite a few more things. But that was my first official, well, that was my first individual regionals anyway.
What about yourself, Jack?
Yeah, so when I knew we were going to talk about regionals, I actually looked back at the regionals results, reminding myself of a few little bits. Because before I went individual in 2016 in Madrid, like the years that I went team before that it just kind of slipped my mind a little bit. But going after kind of jogging my memory about that, the first regionals event that we did was a max snatch, and everyone in your team obviously had, you know, a few minutes to hit a max lift, and we actually won the max snatch event as a team, 2 years running as well. So my first kind of memory is first regionals workout that we did, we won.
Nice.
And like, I'd only been doing CrossFit for a year or two, and obviously I was shitting my pants because first event's a max lift, you either hit it or you don't. So it was, you know, make or break really. But yeah, that was kind of my first memory.
Did you play safe, or did you go for the big lift?
So John was obviously on the team, and he's always this one that's got to, you know, just kind of, no, we're not playing it safe, we're going kind of all in. Do you know what I mean? Is that kind of personality? So we kind of had to push the numbers, and we didn't play it safe, and it paid off.
Yeah.
You know, we were pretty confident in our lifting, to be fair. And we ended up winning by, I think it was like 40, 50 kilos or something like that. It ended up being quite a lot. And a few of the big teams there, like their key people were missing lifts and stuff. So it just goes to show, like, you know, we actually were kind of decent lifters in Europe collectively as a team at that time, you know. So quite interesting, really. And that was
go on.
I think it reflects. So like when I was saying there, when I got back from 2012 regionals, I mean, I think I snatched 75k and I failed 80. But I could snatch like 95 or something, but it just wasn't consistent enough. And he had like a time, he had to do 20 double unders and then snatch in like 50 seconds or something. Anyway, it was like I said, I got back from that. I was like, right, I need to get bigger, I need to get stronger, I need to get my Olympic lifting better. So we, like you said, there's John in the team. We just put like way more focus onto our Olympic lifting, and I think that we weren't one of the first to do it, but in terms of like Europe and the UK, we were doing a lot more weightlifting than other people were doing their training. Like at that point, people were just doing hard workouts still. They're just like, you know, finding a workout that smash them to bits and do it. Whereas we started to get a bit more kind of technical and start drilling proper Olympic weightlifting. And we got advice from coaches around us. And I think that's kind of why that we had the three girls. I can't remember the first year. Did you not do hang snatch and then the next year it was snatch?
Yeah, and it might have been the other way around actually. I think first year not snatch and then second year hang snatch.
Right.
I think.
I can't remember the exact, but there was my wife Fran, there was Cara, there was Beth, and there was Jane, and all four of them, you know, they could all snatch. At that point, they could all snatch over 60. They could snatch 65 to 70. I think Cara's gone on to snatch 80 plus. 80 plus. Yeah. And you know, and that they're still numbers that are decent now.
Yeah.
You know, girls on the program that are snatching 60, you know, they're at a good level, and I think it just goes to show that how much ahead of the game we got in the weightlifting, and the team showed that in the two snatch wins.
Yeah,
nice. Right, I've got a question here for you, Steve. So comparing, we're just talking about your first or your experiences of regionals.
Yeah.
Comparing your first experience at regionals to your last, on how different was your preparation for the competition, and even more specifically for each event. So, yeah, I'll let you take over on that one.
Yeah, so like I said, my very first, my very first was 2011 when it was at Bolton, actually, which is probably about 10 minutes away from my house now. But then I lived an hour away, I know. I remember actually the first event I did for 2011 regionals was a 1RM cluster. It doesn't kind of work the same. It didn't used to work the same as it does now. There was 6 people in the team, and not every athlete did every event. I think I only did 2 or 3 events that weekend. It was a bit crap, but the first one I did was a 1RM cluster, and it was red hot. It was scorching hot. It was 30 plus. Obviously, it was CrossFit, so everyone had tops off, and it wasn't until like 2 o'clock that my event was on, and I was just out in the sun all morning, and I definitely got some form of sunstroke. For about 2 hours before my event, I realised I was getting really tired, so I went and had a sleep, and I woke up about 20 minutes before my heat was supposed to be called, and I shit my pants. I'd just been called into Clitheroe's team. None of the team really knew me that much, and like I had to do a job for them, and I just remember finding this coffee stand and necking 2 double espressos, and I'd never drank coffee in my life. I hated it. But I remember about 10 minutes later, I was absolutely flying, and I ended up clustering like 90 kilos or something. There's a picture of me on Facebook somewhere of my knees clapping together. with Miko Salo in the background looking at me. It was a profile picture for about 5 years, I think. So, like, to answer your question, I was like way amateur, and just I took it serious. Like, I wanted to try my best, but I didn't have really any guidance as what to do. Before events, how to warm up. I just warm up how I thought would work. Got it wrong sometimes, got it right others. The following year, like in terms of getting prepared for the event, I remember that we would arrive in Copenhagen the day before regionals. So we'd arrive there on the Thursday and regionals start on Friday. I remember walking for about 2 hours in Denmark from my apartment to try and find the arena, again in red hot sunshine. And my legs just being like knackered from walking, and I was competing for the next few days, and how that progressed over the years. I think 2015 was the first time that I was like, right, I'm doing this fully serious now. I'd been going all in with the training for a while. I was like, I'm making sure that I don't leave any stone unturned. And I went out a week before in 2015, got an apartment, got used to the food, got used to the weather, got over the travel, and prepared properly for it. And then that kind of stuck then for the competitions where, you did have to travel. It would always be 3 to 7 days before, depending how far you had to travel and how important the competition was. So yeah, I've gone from being asleep 20 minutes of event and then necking 2 espressos to get a flight out 7 days before. But I think it just showed also the progression of the sport as well. The standard got higher, and as I improved, and it meant more to me, and I wanted to get like the top spots. You just have to take things more seriously along the way. And
I want to throw a question off the back of that. So, how did you have any guidance over them? Was it just self-learning, literally you making mistakes? Because obviously for yourself and out for the athletes on the program and stuff, you can give them all this information, but I suppose you really had not so much because of the sport not being so big and things like that.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's what I wanted to achieve with the program. To be honest, is to give athletes that are following it the advice and help and information that I never had for the first few years of competing, and I just had to. And no one had it really. Some people would have had it, but they would have kept it to themselves. The information just wasn't openly out there and you just had to go and learn and get it wrong a few times before you could get it right. Fortunately for me, I'd had plenty of years of doing different sports and warming up for a football match and thinking about tactics and strategy or whatever. Same for even table tennis. You just apply the same kind of thought process. But yeah, there was many times, like I said, like I just explained then, 2011, 2012, where it was quite amateur how I would approach competition. 2013 and on, just started getting a bit more serious. But yeah, it was pretty much. I think Jousty was the first person. In fact, I had a coach, Owen Satterley. I don't know if Jack, you remember him. Sats.
No.
He competed in 2012. That was his last year. He was my coach, but it was just like remote coaching. So he would give me, some help and some info. The first person I had on hand would have been Jousty. And he would have literally just been there to help prepare my body rather than going through any, strategy or anything like that. If I had any niggles or tightness, soreness, he'd help me out there. And to be honest, throughout my whole individual career, I had a little bit of input from Eric from Weightlifting 101 in 2015, but it was just myself. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move on to this question, Jack, coming in. In the warm-up area, regionals, did you tend to see certain countries stick together, or was it more every man and woman for themselves?
A bit of both,
Mm.
So it was kind of countries hang like together, but it was probably more like training programs. So probably a good example is like the training plan guys. They had like quite a big presence in Nordic countries and Iceland. So like the Icelandic guys, the Swedish guys, they kind of be all together in one group. At like the 2018 regionals, all the Russian guys would kind of keep themselves to themselves. Like us, I feel like it's a bit different for us British guys. Like some of us did kind of hang out, and then some people would keep themselves kind of isolated. Like in 2018, I spent, well, not through choice, but I spent quite a bit of time with Mitch, in between events and stuff, and he'd be chewing your ear off for the first like day or two, and I think after the second day he was like top 5 or just outside of top 5, and he went super serious and went from kind of talking all the time 2 days before to then not saying anything before like the last day, and obviously he didn't make it on the final day. He didn't have a great final day, but yeah, you tend to find that if people are part of the same program or from the same country, they do tend to hang out with each other because they know they've met them before. They probably trained with them a few times. I don't know. Yeah.
Is there like that sort of people stare, like other athletes? You get that, or sort of like people walking around, because you get that even in smaller comps. Like people are like, "Well, I'm better," and just is that a lot of that goes on, or?
For sure. So again, especially with the Russians in 2018, there was Gina Malkovsky and there was Ganin, and you just looked at them, and I think there was one other Russian guy as well actually, and you looked at them, and literally there was this Gina, and he was probably like
Dorito, wasn't it? It's built like a Dorito.
Twice as wide as what I was, like shoulder-wise, and I was like, this guy looks like a bodybuilder. Like, what is he doing at this bloody competition here? So they were like the scarier looking ones, and then obviously you've got a few of the guys you kind of hang out on their own. Like Mundweiler tend to, kept himself to himself, and he kind of always has his music in, his shades on, kind of looking super serious as well. And when I feel like when people do have the headphones on and they kind of are like head down, you kind of look over them, you do kind of think to yourself, you're like, yeah, this guy's good. He knows what he's doing. Even if they don't, it's just that kind of psychological thing. Because you look at like professional basketball players and stuff like that who've got like, earphones on. You're like, he's top of his game, and when it's just that kind of psychological aspect, I think, really.
Yeah.
But I don't really remember it. 2016 when I went, or when I was in the team. I don't really remember people kind of, having the kind of music on and stuff like that. I don't know if you remember, Steve, if it was a little bit different a bit earlier.
There was probably some people had music in it. I remember the Nordics, the Swedes, and the Danish athletes. They seemed to me, anyway, like quite intimidating. Just how they came across, and not that they were like nasty people, but I don't know, it's just how they talk as well. Like it's a bit kind of like harsh sometimes, isn't it? The language and the accent. And they were always quite big. And maybe because obviously it was in Denmark as well, it was closer to kind of home soil. Did they feel a bit more comfortable? So you just got that kind of that feeling from them that they were like, don't fuck with me, don't even come and talk to me because I'm not going to talk back to you. And in the early days, us UK lot, we did stick together because it was like the Nords and the Swedes and Danish, like they all had their groups and they all knew each other, probably because they trained it. So us British guys and girls, we just set up camp and we warmed up with each other, and in between events we'd chill out with each other. So yeah, 2012, 13, 14, there was definitely a country divide, I'd say.
On that then, so did you guys did you ever look at people in your category as a main compare, let's say, any particular athlete that you was like determined to beat?
Yeah, I think, like I said, having done the 2011 regionals in a team, you could watch. I was watching the individuals in between my events, and back then the individual and the team events were always like the same events, or very similar anyway. So you could get quite a good comparison of where you were at. And I always just remember watching the top 8 of the individual men. Frederick Egidius was there from the beginning. Mikko Rompar. They were like a Numi Kachinas, and they were like the top foreign athletes. And then there was like Andy Edwards and Davs Dennis that were more from home soil. So then those athletes for me for the first few years, like when I'd go away and I'd go training, like I would pitch myself like going up against them, and if they were pitch them by my side basically, and that would kind of spur me on to beat them. So those are always in my mind, but it's just because they were up there at the top. They had a target in the back, and I wanted to go for them. There was also,
Go on.
Well, there's also a bit of a UK. It's like a friendly UK rivalry. I don't know if you felt it at any point, Jack, but I definitely had it. It was like, because us UK guys, there was no one getting to the top. Like there was no one in the top 3. There was no one qualifying. So it was kind of like a battle between us, like as a separate competition, as who would be the top in the UK. I think in 2013 I got it. I think maybe Rob Martin beat me, but he lived in Spain, so it didn't matter. Then 2014, I do. 2014, Shrunky and Will Kane came on the scene, and they were very kind of. I don't know if they were vocal. I remember them as being quite vocal on just like social media, and just like, they made it known that they were coming to, hunt people down and beat you. And so they were kind of in my radar of, they were decent athletes. They did well in the Open. They qualified. I did particularly bad in 2014 Open. And then when the 2014 regional weekend kind of like went through, and I realised that I wasn't, you know, I knew that there was probably an outside chance that I could get to the games that year, but things didn't go. Too many bad events, and it got to the last event, and it was like, right, Will Kane was ahead of me. I think Shrunky might have been ahead of me. It was about the same points.
Of course, yeah.
And it was 64 pull-ups, 8 overhead squats at 93 for time. It was the final. And I remember finishing, looked to my left, and I beat Will and shrunk it. And then I saw Will failing overhead squats, and I knew at that point that I'd overtook them in the leaderboard. And I just lobbed me belt up in the air. I was like, get in. But like I say, it's friendly competition. There was never any like nastiness about it. But you know, you always want to beat those guys that are around you. And I have a feeling that I wouldn't have heard the end of it if Will was top in the UK that year.
When I obviously 2016, Steve had to. I think you pulled out after the second event because you're back, didn't you?
Yeah.
And Steve was like, make sure you're kind of at least top in the UK, because I just wanted to. It was my first regionals individually. I just wanted to go and just see what I could kind of do. So Steve was like, come on, just make sure you're first in the UK, do a job, because it stayed in the gym for the past 2-3 years or whatever it had beforehand, because Steve was first at regionals out the UK anyway.
No pressure then.
So did a job in 2016, and I was happy to kind of come first in the UK there. And I think that second time individually in 2018, like I wasn't that bothered about the other lads in the UK, because I just thought, I was like, in my head, I was thinking I'm way better than the rest of these lot from the UK, like especially in a regionals format. That's kind of the mindset I was going in with, and I was like, I'm close to this top 5 here. So like Steve said before, there's a target on the top guys' backs, like Munwile and Bjorgvin and them sort of people. And especially when Bjorgvin didn't have a great start on the first day, like at all. He was like in 23rd or something like that. I remember like being ahead of him, and I was thinking, and there was a few of the top guys were like a bit further down the leaderboard than what you probably usually would expect after the first day. So I was like, it's all up for grabs here. You know what I mean? It's anyone's game. So yeah, I feel like in 2018 there wasn't as much of that rivalry for the rest of the UK, so to speak. But I feel like if you're just bothered about who else is in your country, you end up kind of limiting yourself. Like, you know what I mean? Because they might be so far behind you already, or you might be just that little bit better than them, and you're just kind of holding yourself back there. So, yeah, it's kind of my mindset. But,
it was like that was similar for me in 2015. It's like I didn't really care about the other UK guys then. I knew the shape that I was in. I would have been big-headed. I had to fuck up to not beat them. But it was like I said, Egidius was like, in my head, it was between me or Egidius that took the game spot that year. I just felt like, I knew that Koski was a top athlete, and Bjorgvin, I'd trained with him quite a lot. I knew that their ticket was in. There was 5 spots available that year. Hogberg had been there a couple of times, so he had a chance. And then, there was myself, there was Hesketh, there was Egidius, there was a Rompar, there was many athletes in there, but for some reason I just had it down. It was me and Frederick. I remember training in the gym that he trains in Denmark a few days before, and it was kind of like nothing actually said, but it's like a bit awkward. It was just like we both want to fucking beat each other, and
Savage.
Your screen's frozen there, I think, Kyle.
Has it?
Yeah.
Hang on. I don't know how I'll get that to change. Any ideas?
No idea. Just make sure your signal's all right.
Yeah. Just crack on.
Yeah.
Crack on, we can hear you. We don't need to see you.
Yeah. As long as it's a good picture of me.
It looks a bit blurry to me. There we go.
All right, so Steve, recently the game's introduced some pretty savage athlete cuts.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been for the first time, as you probably experienced in 2013 with the minimum requirements rule.
Yeah.
I'll take that was in regional setup as well.
Yeah.
What was that like? Did that cause major upsets for athletes?
Yeah, it was. So I think it was introduced because in 2012 you didn't need to put a video in the open. There's no videos you submitted. You just put your score in, and it's out of integrity, and that most people would have a judge or an affiliate owner that would make sure it was done properly. But obviously people bent the rules or just snapped the rules and fully cheated. And there was people turning up to regionals, and they were just nowhere near the mark. The bottom five. There were people that would win the open and then come last. It was just kind of. So I think the minimum requirements was put in, and especially early doors in some events, like at the weekend. There was a 3-rep max overhead squat in 2013, and it had to go from the floor. And you had there was like 4 different weights you could start off, and I think it was like 60, 80, 100 or 115 kilos that you could start at. And if you got your 3 reps, then you could go up by 5 pounds. But if you didn't, so you chose what weight you'd go in at, and it had to be one of those 4. And if you didn't get 3 reps, if you didn't complete 3 full reps at that weight, you were out of the weekend, and it was the first day. It might have even been the first event. Maybe it was the second event. I think it was the second event. And that was squeaky bum time, that one. Because I remember actually, I was umming and ahhing. Do I go? I could do 115. I think I'd done 120 for 3 at that point. But I was umming and ahhing whether to go in at 115 because it was not many people were doing it. Only the top lads were doing it, and I knew I could do it, but I knew it was a risk, and I didn't want my second appearance at regionals to be over after 2 events. And I was speaking to JST that weekend, and he said, "Well, what do you want from this weekend?" I said, "Realistically, you're going to make the games." I was like, "No." He's like, "Right. So do you want to get 6 or 7 good events under your belt, or do you want to take the risk and potentially piss it all down the drain?" So I went in at 100, and it's probably a good chance that it was a good decision that I didn't do 115 because I don't think I would have got it, to be honest. John Reed, I don't know if any of you remember him, went in at 115. He was one of the top UK lads then as well, and he didn't get 3 reps. He must have done 5 sets of 5 in the warm-up area with 115. He was warming up for hours and hours, just did it over. He was doing it over and over and over again, got out onto the floor and he didn't make it. So that was his weekend over. And I remember Hayley Knowles, Jack, you'll know her. One of the top UK girls then, she failed to make 3 reps. And that was kind of a big upset. She was decent back then, was Hayley, and there was probably many other athletes, but those are the 2 because they're UK that I remember.
Did anyone turn up? Sorry, Jack. Did anyone turn up and use like they've definitely cheated from the open?
Oh mate, there was women that couldn't do double unders. They couldn't do double unders, and there was double unders in the open. And there's these women at the post. I think I can't remember her name. Eva Cloutiel or something like that. That might have been her name. Did posted that they'd done hundreds and hundreds in this qualifying work. I think it was 150 actually. It was it 90? It was 150 wall balls, 90 double unders, 30 muscle ups, and yeah, she couldn't string a single, double them together on the competition floor. But, you know, she wasn't the only. There was probably a handful of men and a handful of women that kind of caught out, and I think that's when they realised that they need to, you know, bring some sort of video submission.
Yeah, I remember 2016 for cutting people was pretty savage on the girls. Like, it wasn't savage, it needed to be done. But I remember Lucy Madge, her max snatch was like 60 kilos, and the opening bar,
oh yeah,
3 kilos, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah.
And she was bricking herself for that first event, like you would be. And I think I don't know if she only got the one rep as well. And then there was Charlotte Spence for the second event with strict ring muscle ups. Like, couldn't do a strict ring muscle up, could she?
No, I think he needed to complete a full round. And that, again, like you say, second event of the weekend, first day.
Yeah.
Then you're out. Just trained all year for it and spent about $1,000 to get there. And
you're out after an event or 2 events, yeah.
They've always been known to be quite savage with cuts.
And then in 2018, it was split. Europe was split into like north, central, south, and the UK was in central with like Greece, a few other countries. And I remember there's 2 Greek lads, and they were top of the leaderboard in Central Europe. It got to regionals, and they were like bottom 2, and I was like, there's no way they've smashed the Open like that and then come bottom 2 at regionals. You're like, just something fishy, you know, going on there. Do you know what I mean?
It was a lefterist guy, wasn't it?
He was one of them. Yeah. And the other one was
lefterist Theo Fernandez, however he says his name. And he won the Open. Or did he come second in the Open in 2019? And he won the Open last year.
Yeah.
Tested positive at Dubai Fitness Championships. I remember seeing him, and I remember seeing him when we were at that gym in America, but in 2019 games, and I think it was Armin said, "Oh, that's that lefterist bloke." And I remember watching him and just being like, you know, he's in good shape and he was moving fast, but there's like he's not beating Matt Fraser in open workouts standard.
No way.
No way. And there's rumour, I don't know if it's true, there's rumour that he has like his own plates that are like hollow, just like with no weight, and I don't know if it's true, but that was what the rumour was going around. And you know, we'll always have cheats, but
when it's at the top like that, like it's just more obvious, and like you're taking away much more from other people at that level. You know what I mean? That could have been the difference between like £500,000 for some person and £250,000, and that's like a year's wage or whatever else. Do you know what I mean?
I wish my year's wage was £500,000.
That's what you're getting, lads.
but that guy, he cheated his way to the games. There's no drug test all year, and there was just the Open. So it's like there was flaws even just like last year, but you know, hopefully with the whole new systems and God knows whatever's going to happen with CrossFit over the next couple of years. But
what about let's talk about the standard of what was the Europe region compared to other regions around the world. Obviously, it was a bit more of a higher standard, wasn't it, for people, as in workouts that people done in California, say, compared to the times that it was getting in the Europe sort of marker.
I think the main where the standard was mainly different was just the Open. I think the pool of athletes in Europe was that much bigger that just to qualify for regionals in Europe was way harder than any other region. But when you got to regionals, like the top standard of the Europe region then was probably a little bit behind. Well, in the men's anyway, the women's was well ahead. But in the men's, we were behind probably, I'd say, till the likes of Koski and Bjorgvin came on. But like compared to, I used to look, even in 2017, I think, you know, we put the scores that we were putting in, we would be at the top of most other regions, and we were like 10th, 11th, 12th, you know, midway through, and if you got one workout wrong, or it wasn't a great workout for you, you were scraping to stay in the top, in the top qualifying positions. So it was pretty savage in the Open, especially from kind of, I remember from 2014 and onwards, to me, that's where the Europe standard just kind of like went through the roof for the Open. 2014 was the year that I thought I'd just concentrate on regionals, because I would coast through the Open, and then I end up, you know, getting in by the skin of my teeth. So I didn't make that mistake again for the next few years.
Yeah, it's like in Europe, I feel like we've always been better at just conditioning workouts. Probably because most people have got like a football as a background, or, you know, it's more like, depends on like your aerobic based sports that we do over here, whereas in America it's kind of American football, basketball, you got to be kind of more explosive, don't you? So I guess that's probably why in the Open, you know, that everyone's kind of so much fitter. You know, when it comes to open workouts, you just got to be kind of fitter at low skill work, don't you? Whereas regionals was kind of higher skill. In previous years, it tended to be kind of a bit heavier. So that's probably where that difference kind of came in, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on your experience, and would you when you went to regionals, even as a team, was they harder workouts than going to the CrossFit Games? Because they meant a little bit more, if you know what I mean. So the workouts of regionals, did you find them tougher than being at the CrossFit Games, or was it just the atmosphere that made it more tough, if you like?
I'd say they were like tougher as an example, 2017 first event was worm thrusters and burpees over the worm. Like that was, you know, that's one of the hard events. And then probably the last event where it's 30 ground to overhead, that was like another really hard event. But
50.
Yeah, I'd equally say some of the games events were just as bad, like being dragged along by Jane in that first event at the games. And then there was like the deadlift workout where I'm holding on to that bar, the deadlift bar with Jane as well, getting dragged through that. Especially in a team, like it's always going to be hard, especially if there's someone else in the team that's that little bit better than you, and then it can just kind of keep you just about dragging along behind them. Like it's always going to be hard. Obviously, I don't have the experience going to the games individually, but I'm sure Steve will enlighten you there.
Especially 2014 and 15, where regionals, for me, the goal then at regionals was just get to the game. So I was putting the own pressure on myself to have to perform. So that's where, you know, maybe the workouts definitely, every workout's fucking hard, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You know, the better you get, the harder all of the workouts become, because when there's like a heavy workout or a higher skill workout where, you know, early on, it might be quite a fun one because, you know, you don't have to go that fast a pace. But once you get really good at those exercises and those skills, you can then go quite hard, and then it becomes a hard workout. but yeah, like in the team, like Jack was saying, there's not too much difference between regionals and games events. It was the workouts where you knew you were probably just behind the rest of the team, where you knew that you had to like really dig in, because it ultimately came down to your performance on how the team did in that event. But that for me is what kind of spurred me on throughout the whole of that year as training as a team, knowing that if I get like what I am weakest at up in this team, then there'll never become a point where I'm pulling the team down. And I think I speak for the rest of the guys, where like everyone was fully aware of the areas that they might kind of fall back, and you never want to be that person in the team where everyone's kind of waiting on you, and you physically can't go any harder or try any harder than what you're capable of.
We'll go into this next question. We sort of cover the basis of it, but how would you compare the standard of athlete you need to be to qualify back then as a regional in the Open, and now just to become a national champ of the Open? So,
to be a national to be a national champion, in like Cameroon or wherever else, like it's so much easier, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then you've got other countries where, like America, becoming national champion in America, like so hard to do that. You've no chance until Matt Fraser kind of calls it a day. You're not going to be probably fittest in America, are you?
Yeah.
Whereas qualifying back in the day, coming top 3 or top 5 at regionals, just as hard.
Yeah.
Just as, as trying to come like first in America, or if it's another stat country. But otherwise, like with regards to national champions, a lot of people get a bit of a bye.
No, go on.
I said I would compare it. So if we compare last year, like last year's Open in the UK for the men, it was a good race, wasn't it? We had Shrunky, we had Elliot, and we had Zach, and it was kind of to the wire until the last workout. And all those three qualified for the games that year. Where Zach won for UK. Elliot got in through worldwide, and then Shrunky got his ticket in strength and depth. And if he hadn't got his ticket in strength and depth, he was the next one. I think actually, there's a good fact for you. The day after strength and depth, I think that's when Theophanidis or someone tested positive, and Shrunky would have got an invite through the Open.
Wow.
So if he didn't make it in strength and depth, he was getting it through the Open the next time anyway. So those three lads, I would say compared to regionals and what you had to be in the Open, when regionals were around, yeah, they were well above qualifying. I would say though that Reggie would have been at that level where it's just like he would have got into regionals there last year, but like if you're lower than Reggie, there's a good chance you're not qualifying for regionals. So that's top 4 in the UK, and we usually had around about 4, maybe 5 athletes in the UK that would make regionals.
Yeah.
So I mean, Reggie was in great shape. He's in better shape now, but he was in great shape last year, and he has some engine on him. So to be able to beat Reggie in the Open over 5 workouts, you have to be in good. You have to be in very good shape, and I think that just reflects how that's how hard it was to get to regionals. From 2014 and on. I think it was what then to be called yourself a regional athlete, like now it probably doesn't mean too much to too many people, but then if you're a regional athlete out of Europe, you were good. you could, if you did everything legit, you were kind of, you're up there. And if you were going in any other region, you'd be probably pushing for halfway up the leaderboard or higher, 15th to 10th, if you just qualified out of Europe, in my opinion, in other regions. The difference was just the top 3 from Europe. We were always just a little bit behind your America regions.
I'd say that obviously to qualify for regionals, you have to come top 40 in Europe. And then I'd say obviously top 40, I'd say for like sanctionals now, where you kind of place in Europe potentially, it'd be kind of like dropping it down to maybe top 150. Like if you're in that top 150 in Europe, that's kind of, I'd say maybe the level now. Like if you were to kind of look at the leaderboard and take a rough kind of guess of the level, because obviously you do have some top guys at the sanctionals, don't you? And then it's kind of just depends which athletes kind of pick which sanctional they're going to do.
What sanctional you want to choose. You almost
exactly.
become a sanctional athlete by going to one of the lesser ones, can you? Sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was supposed to be going to Egypt when it was in. When would it have been? It would have been in April.
Sanctional athlete.
Yeah. That would have been my first individual sanctional athlete sanctional event. And
Instagram.
It was the first event. Second event, was power snatch toaster bar. I think maybe 2 rounds, and then it went power snatch ring muscle ups, and the weight went up, and it was a pretty tough little workout. And then it went into a max lift, clean, hang clean, jerk, and I didn't record. I did the workout twice, and both times failed to record a lift. And I just thought, fuck it, I'll put my score in, see what happens. And then I did the last workout, and I qualified. I qualified for the individually for sanctioned events, and that was with taking a last place on a lift, and so it just shows like you put a score of 0 in the open.
Yeah.
See you later.
This is what I'm going to say then, of like, how do people call themselves elite athletes if they've just gone to one sanctioned event? Can you call yourself an elite athlete? As in, a lot of people do, then they like, I've gone to a sanction. Like, I feel like you've got to be at that top end of the sanction
I don't think
event.
I don't think what competition you compete at defines whether you're an elite athlete. I think your performance is, what you can physically do, what you're capable of, and how you live your life defines whether you're an elite athlete or not. Like I said, anyone could have turned. There was many athletes that qualified for Egypt that weren't, I wouldn't class them as elite. Elite to me means top of your sport. Means you're in the top, top 0.5% of anyone that's even trying to be good. The good thing about CrossFit is that it gives the opportunity for a lot of people to experience that competition and go against the likes of, I think Rasmus was going to be at Egypt. There's Khan Porter was going to be at Egypt. Like, these are multiple-time games athletes, and it gives people the chance to compete against them, which is a great thing. But like I say, it just, because of the amount of sanctioned events and the flexibility now of that season, it just kind of dilutes the standard that you need to be at, which is good because a lot of people were very good at CrossFit and couldn't get to sanctionals because they just weren't good enough. So it's just opening the door for people to get into the competition scene a little bit more.
Yeah. On the workout fronts, from the let's say regional workouts to what sanctional workouts are, do they differ as much? Because you've both done sort of, well, Jack, you've been to a few sanctioned event and the regionals as an individual. Do they differ?
They do differ now, because it was obviously Dave Castro that was, writing all the workouts for regionals, whereas each sanctional that you go to, someone different is writing those workouts, and they're going to have their own style. They're going to have maybe only 2 days to program events for. And I wouldn't say it's different. It's different in that the workouts are harder or anything like that, because like we said before, a workout's only as hard as as you push, and you're always going to push as hard as you can. But I'd say some of the, not all sanctionals, but the program for some of the sanctionals, I'd say was a bit iffy. Like, you looked at some of the events and you're like, it's not been that well thought out, this, or there's quite a few events that are testing the same thing, or they've been a bit lazy in the programming, just things like that. Whereas you knew with Dave Castro, you're going to get a good, well-rounded test. Steve, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, when I was at regionals, is that every event that you had to do, it was designed, and there was so many times I didn't make a time cap. Even 2015, when I came third, I didn't reach the time cap of the chipper. I was 40 box overs short or something. But they were designed and made out so that the top athletes could complete them and compete. So it was like for the top 10, and so the top 3 could separate themselves. Whether that's with when they introduced strict handstand push-ups and strict ring muscle-ups in the same workout, it was like that just knocked half the field off most regions. Like, people just couldn't do them. We were lucky enough to have 6 weeks to practice, but some of the earlier regions that just killed half the competition off straight away, and I think that was the kind of Castro's always said that he wants to find the fittest. He's not bothered about keeping everyone happy. And like Jack said before, with the girls having to start 60 kilos that time on the snatch ladder, and do 10 reps. You have to, they're making sure that the people that do these workouts, you're going to be a top athlete if you're going to complete them. Whereas I feel like at sanctional level, the workouts are maybe, they're just targeted to that little bit lower, so that maybe more people can do them. Like, there's a little bit more kind of like of that touch on the workouts, I feel, where just to keep it so everyone can do them, and like so that the organisers or whoever's writing the programming don't run the risk of people turning around and saying, I've just paid 400 quid and I can't even do this. It's like, well, that was the same crap when he was at regionals, and I was pay the same amount of money and still fly there, and no one said that. Well, people probably thought it, but that was it. You get to regionals, you're gonna get tested with hard workouts, and that's what made you go back the following year and make sure that you could complete anything that was chucked at you. I feel like now people get the back up a little bit if the workouts are too hard, or some aspects of it that are too challenging. But ultimately, they try to find, if you set a bunch of workouts for Matt Fraser, he's going to run through most workouts you can ever think of in a decent fashion, like a decent pace. So they need to be able to challenge the likes of him.
Yeah.
So if you're scraping in bottom 5 in a sanctional event, then just be prepared that there's going to be a couple of events where you can't complete some of the exercises, some of the weights, or some of the stuff you're going to have to do. I remember the handstand walk obstacle workout from 2018, ring muscle ups, and then the first time they put in the obstacle, the ramps up and the steps down. Like, so many girls just got stopped in the tracks there. Like, it it was a hard exercise, a hard skill, and you know, look at people now is that they've got over it. Maybe they were. I don't think many people moaned at that point, but they've got over it, and now most people, you know, it's handsome walk over an obstacle is, if you're going to be a competitor, it's just something you need to be able to do.
I feel like regionals was always kind of like it had raised that bar, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we do the handstand obstacle this year, or like the strict muscle ups a few years before that. Whereas with sanctionals now, there's not like a true kind of baseline across all the events where it's like, right, we're all going to introduce this new movement. This is going to raise the bar again. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? There's not that kind of.
It's almost like they compete against themselves, so you can make them like one of the craziest workouts sometimes as well. Like, let's do this to raise that bar, and then, you know.
Yeah, I think when you open up the programming rights to like anyone, you know, you're opening yourself. Well, for CrossFit, are opening themselves to CrossFit Games. People want to just try new things and just be different. Whereas like all the regionals events, they were just for time.
Yeah.
Like it was a chipper, it was 3 rounds, or it was a lift, or it was like some skills, and it was always for time. Like there was no burpees every minute on the minute. There's nothing else. There's no fancy things. That it was just like simple tests that were hard. And as regionals went on, they made it better to be able to watch with moving things along as you went into different rounds. There was no like, you didn't have to get a calculator out mid-workout and, you know, figure out an equation of how to finish this workout. It was just kind of, they were just put together in a simple fashion. And I think competitions do find themselves trying to feel that they feel the need to be different sometimes.
I feel like Dubai doing, it's just like chest butterfly pull-ups, but with your hands like the other way around and stuff like that. I'm like, well, I feel like, you know, creating new movements, yeah, like create a few new movements, but I'm just like, do you know what I mean? I'm a bit like skeptical as to some of the movements that.
That was just different hand position. It's like, what's the reason behind it?
And there was like another one where like it was like sit-ups, but you have
the same workout. Yeah, that same one workout had like 4 exercises that were just shy. They were just like underarm butterfly pull-ups, deck squats,
savage.
like 2 dumbbells, squat down, touch your bum on a. I don't know if you had to go below parallel or touch your bum on something, and then jump up out of the squat and be on top of the box. Yeah, them deck squats, just a sit up with a kettlebell and come up. You're just like, these are the fittest athletes in the world. Like,
it's a fucking joke.
They're competing for thousands and thousands of pounds. Like, stop giving them boot camp exercises.
Yeah.
So true, and I watched that and I was literally like, what am I watching here? Is this like, looks like PE at the school or something like that? Do you know what I mean? I'm like, are they just dicking about doing whatever they want on the climbing frame or what?
Yeah, but they're going to get athletes doing like, if there wasn't 100 grand for the winner or something, would they turn around and go, I'm not doing that?
No, totally, yeah. That's what I mean. The money is power. It's just power, isn't it?
I'd do it naked if there's 100 grand.
So I'm going to finally close out with what's your funniest stories from the regionals? Anything you can look back at, maybe about yourself or any other athletes that you sort of picked up on. Let's start with you, Jack. Have you got anything?
Funny. Again, probably coming back to Mitch, you know, and obviously in Berlin, like first 2 days, it was, you know, in and around that top 5, like he was doing well. And he'd been cycling around all weekend and the few days before on just like, you know, a normal bike going around Berlin doing, and I'm like, mate, what are you doing? You're wasting all this energy and everything else on this bike cycling around Berlin. every you're just taking away them inches there. You know,
It's all because he didn't want to fork out 20 quid for a taxi getting to his hotel from the airport.
So true.
Right,
So true.
How was his coach? How was his coach then?
Was it?
Yeah.
His coach
You couldn't tell him though. You couldn't tell him.
No.
Couldn't tell him. It's like you would say like, Mitch, what are you doing? But he'd just be like, oh, I'm just having a cycle around Berlin. And it's like, well, right.
I thought
you wanted to know the games, mate.
We had a debrief after that competition, like a few weeks later, after I'd gone home and chilled out. He came up to the gym, and we had a chat about how it went. And he was just like, I feel like I need. It's like I really struggled on that third day of competition. Like I just felt fatigued. Like I couldn't keep up the intensity and on the last day. And I was like, right, so what do you put that down to? And he said, oh, I think I just need to get, I need to do more competitions. I need to get used to like 3 days of competing back to back. And, he probably won't mind me saying this, Mitch, now he can laugh at himself. But I told him, do you realise that you cycled nearly 50 kilometres during that weekend competition? So, oh, yeah, but I didn't think that would affect me too much. I was like, right, okay. Do you realise the weekend before regionals, you were maxing out at body power, maxing out your snatch at body power? And I was like, yeah. And then after you maxed out your snatch, you did like an AMRAP at 90 kilos or you did like 20 reps for time. This is when you're supposed to be tapering down for your competition. And that would just Mitch all over. Like you say, you couldn't tell him. It was that up and down. He was getting excited like a good little dog before the event. You just couldn't control him.
And then a few other funny moments. So one of our first, can't remember if it was 2014, 2015. It was like the day before regionals, and we're in this restaurant, and we were like, it must have been 2014. We're eating pizza and chips and stuff, and then Rory McKernan walks in. I had to think about that then. Rory McKernan walks in with his, small entourage of people with him. And I'm like, oh, look over there, look who it is. Da, da, da. And I take a picture and put it on Snapchat, and I put, look, it's Rory McKernan, Pat Sherwood. And then I put it on. And then Fran, or someone like that, snapshotted it, or Steve snapshotted it, put it on Twitter, tagged Rory McKernan, who obviously looked at his phone, looked over at us, and then he came over and started at us. Because I got confused between Rory McKernan and Pat Sherwood, so one of them's bald, hardly no hair, and the other one's got a Johnny Bravo clip. I don't know.
That was funny. And I think for the next few years, every time we bumped into Rory McKernan,
Call him Pat.
we would go, look, it's Pat Sherwood, and he would. It was funny because
I remember this all the years later.
He did. Rory McKernan's like, he was a good-looking guy when you think, oh, girls fancy him. He's like the main face of media. And then Pat Sherwood, no offence to him, but it wasn't. He doesn't look like Rory McKernan, does he? So I think it was quite offensive to Rory McKernan.
Oh, God. Have you got a thing to add to that, Steve? Any funny moments?
Yeah. So, 2012, back then the after parties were a lot better than what they are these days. And there was the after party after the regionals, and it was $40 to get in. Unlimited food, unlimited drink for $40. I mean, good food and drinks, like it's just unlimited. And you're doing this to a bunch of Europeans, half of which are from the UK, and it would just got absolutely out of hand. I remember Briggsy was pole dancing with Nicky Simpson on, and I had just drunk. I'd ate loads. I got in. I was obviously starving. It was in the competition, so I was like, right, all you can eat food. Ate loads of food, and then I was like, right, let's get on it. So we just started. I was with John then, and we'd been at uni together, so we were just like necking the drinks left, right. Because I'd eaten loads of food, I just didn't feel like I was getting that drunk, and everyone started dancing, and I was like, I don't really dance me unless I'm. So just started just necking drinks, and then before I know it, I'm stumbling around outside, spewing up behind the club, because obviously I ate all this food and then I smashed all this drink, and now it's all coming out of me. Anyway, I found a taxi, and I found a man. I was just like, you need to take me home, take me back to my hotel. I showed him, what it was called, and he took me back. And I got there, and I was like, before I got there, I made him pull over multiple times while I got out and was sick all the And then I got there, back to my hotel, and I remember I didn't think I had my room key with me, so I couldn't get in. The door was locked. The hotel door was locked, so I had to buzz. I was buzzing all the buzzers. Someone let me in until I got in. Got up to my room into the corridor. I was like, well, I don't have my room key, and there was no one at the reception to give me a key to let me in. So I just got comfy outside my door and just tucked up in a ball. And fell asleep outside my door. And about 2 hours later, John comes back with Dav Dennis and a couple of others, and they're like, "Is that Steve?" I was just like, I was out of it, passed out, and John was like, "Steve, what are you doing?" I was like, "I'm locked out. I can't get in." And he bent down and he'd put his hand in my pocket and just picked out the key like that. And went,
no.
Oh. And all I remember is the next day is just like, because everyone, I think actually that weekend, the bill that Europe gathered over that night out was bigger than all of the bills in all of the other regionals put together. I'm sure that fact came out from somewhere. And I just remember everyone in that Copenhagen airport. Jack, I don't know if you remember that. We've been to that airport a few times since on training camp, and there's like marble tables near in the lounge where you wait, and you just every like marble table. It's like it's like a marble seat, but you just saw like British athletes just lying down on them like that. just completely fucked.
Dude.
Always the British.
Yeah, always.
Brits abroad.
Yeah.
Oh, guys. Well, it's been good actually getting into a bit of insight about the regionals, the competition, and probably throwing it back, bringing back you guys a few memories.
Yeah, it's good. It's a shame that they'll. We don't know if they'll ever be back, but
might be.
Yeah, it was always a good crack, wasn't it? It was always where all the top athletes got together, and you knew that's where you're going to test yourself. I do prefer the season now for athletes, the fact that you can go anywhere, but it was always a great competition, and I guess we can be proud to say that we were there multiple times.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Right, I'll just close it out with saying thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the Spotify account, and if you've been watching on YouTube, quick smile from everyone.
Quick like, thumbs up button.
Yeah.
And,
thumbs up.
We've had a few decent little podcasts out now, so I'll get sharing them on your Instagram stories. And if there's, like I said last time, if there's anything you want to cover, we've got the next topic lined up, but we've got space for some other topics. If anyone wants to hear us rabbit on about anything, then give us a shout.
Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See ya.
See you later.
See ya.